retire from boxing before I let boxing retire me.
That I'm not comfortable with. You know, I had a great career. You know, I've done some tremendous things in the sport of boxing. I made a lot of history. You know, what can I not be proud of if I walked away from the sport right now? You know, I don't have no regrets because everything that I did it my way. So if I was to walk away from the sport right now.
Terence "Bud" Crawford has stepped away from professional boxing. Following months of controversy, legal disputes, and ongoing clashes with the WBC, the undefeated and undisputed pound-for-pound great has chosen to leave the sport that defined his legacy. Once the face of elite boxing dominance, Crawford now appears ready to close the chapter on a historic career.
Retire, Bud. Retire, Bud. It's over. You ain't got nothing else to prove. Let's go fishing, Bud. Let's go fishing, Bud. Retire. Yeah. It's over with.
The same fighter who ruled 3 divisions, collected unified championships, and moved with calm, controlled confidence is now finished with the sport. His walked away, his title gone, his reputation questioned, contracts disputed, and legends openly challenging his choices. Crawford has made it clear that the sport he sacrificed everything for, the one he shed blood in, ultimately pushed him to FAI. So what really unfolded behind closed doors? What could drive one of this era's greatest talents to leave on his own terms, not beaten, but standing his ground? Today, we're uncovering the truth behind Terence Crawford's stunning departure, a saga of broken trust, control, and conviction that has sent shockwaves through boxing.
You know, I always said that I'm gonna retire on my own terms, and I'm gonna feel good because everything that I did it my way.
It all started with a bombshell announcement. On December 3, 2025, the WBC revealed it had removed Terence "Bud" Crawford as world super middleweight champion. The move sent immediate shockwaves across the boxing landscape. According to the organization, the decision stemmed from Crawford's refusal to submit sanctioning fees for his previous 2 bouts, most notably his massive $50 million clash with Canelo Alvarez.
He never paid the sanction fees for that fight. His next fight was Canelo Alvarez. He fought for the WBC title as well as the other 3 organizations, and he won the WBC title and the undisputed. He became undisputed, and he did not pay the sanction fees for the fight.
In an instant, the fighter who once stood on top of the sport was stripped of his throne. His undisputed reign came to an end, the belt was taken away, and any remaining ties with the WBC were effectively severed. But despite how abrupt it appeared, those close to the situation insist this outcome had been building long before the official decision.
He did not comply with the rules, then he moves up to super middle and makes the fight of the century, beats Canelo, makes $50 million or around that. The WBC absolutely is not going to charge 3% of such an amount. We made a very clear 0.6%, which is $300,000.
Away from the headlines, Crawford's frustration had been building for a long time. Years of unfulfilled commitments, behind-the-scenes maneuvering, and a system that often turns on its own stars had taken their toll. At that point, he wasn't just battling opponents under the lights, he was pushing back against the structure of the sport itself. Even before tensions with the WBC reached a breaking point, Crawford was already locked in another high-stakes fight, this time in court. He filed a lawsuit against one of boxing's most influential promoters, Bob Arum, and his company, Top Rank. In the filing, Crawford alleged contract violations, deceptive business practices, and claimed racial discrimination, accusations that sent ripples throughout the boxing industry.
I wanted to give a real quick snippet of what I just found out. So Terence "Bud" Crawford just filed a lawsuit against Top Rank and Bob Arum, claiming racism and bias against black fighters.
Crawford has stated that Top Rank assured him they would line up a long-awaited unification bout with Errol Spence Jr., a matchup fans had been demanding for years. According to Crawford, an agreement was reached in 2019 stipulating that if a legitimate offer to Spence wasn't made by the end of 2020, he would receive a $900,000 payout. Crawford says that money was never delivered. Instead, he claims he was left sidelined, shut out of what should have been the defining fight of his career, while attention shifted to other fighters. The situation escalated further with a serious allegation. Crawford accused Arum of repeatedly making racially insensitive remarks that, in his view, harmed the image and standing of black fighters, including Crawford himself.
Terence Crawford is actually asking for $10 million in damages. He's basically stating that none of the fighters want to speak up, they don't want to say anything.
Arum responded aggressively, dismissing the lawsuit as baseless and irresponsible. He rejected the claims outright, arguing that the accusations were offensive and contradicted his decades-long history in the sport. From Arum's perspective, the legal action was nothing more than a calculated attempt to pressure him. That courtroom clash became a turning point, a clear fracture between promoter and fighter. Not long after, Crawford parted ways with Top Rank, determined to move forward independently and shape his career on his own terms. But the independence he sought didn't bring calm. Instead, it led him directly into another controversy when the WBC removed him from his championship position. This time, Crawford refused to stay quiet. His response was swift and explosive.
For sanction fees, right? Then he gonna tell me I ain't even apologize? Like, who the fuck you think I am? Boy, you better slap your fucking self and paying your ass shit.
In an 8-minute video that quickly went viral, Crawford unleashed his frustration on the WBC. He dismissed their championship belts as empty symbols and accused the organization of prioritizing money over fighters. The message was intense, emotional, and fueled by years of pent-up anger. Crawford made it clear that, in his view, real legacy isn't decided by an organization's strap, but by what happens inside the ring. That single moment ignited a firestorm across the boxing world, sparking debates among fans, fighters, and insiders about who truly controls the sport's meaning and its champions.
You, the WBC, and you got the fucking green belt, which don't mean fucking shit. The fucking real belt is the ring belt, which is free, motherfucker. What are you talking about? You want me to pay you more than the other sanction bodies because you feel like you better than them. How in the world all the sanction bodies agreed to the same amount, but you sit your motherfucking ass up there and say that I need to apologize to you?
Reaction was instant and divided. To many fans, Crawford became a symbol of resistance, someone finally calling out the double standards and power games run by boxing's ruling organizations. To others, the moment looked like an emotional unraveling, with a great champion risking damage to his own legacy. Even Errol Spence Jr., Crawford's longtime rival, felt compelled to offer his perspective as the debate continued to spread.
I mean, it makes sense, but I mean, I think he should have talked about it, before, because now he's talking about it when he don't need the WBC anymore. And he should have talked about it, way back when I said something, he should have spoke up and said something about it too. So I don't know, man. It is what it is.
Spence acknowledged the point but questioned the timing, suggesting that Crawford only spoke up once the WBC no longer held leverage over him. In his view, those criticisms would have carried more weight if they had been voiced earlier. That divide shaped public opinion. Some heard frustration and resentment, while others heard honesty and liberation. What was undeniable, however, was that Crawford had stopped operating within boxing's traditional boundaries. Then the spotlight shifted to the next wave of fighters. Rising contender Keyshawn Davis stepped forward and openly backed Crawford, offering a voice from the new generation that refused to stay silent.
I always said I never understand why we become champion have to pay for a belt. Keep that
Yeah.
Keep it. I'm not gonna work 14, 15 years for me to pay for something I worked for. When I went to the Olympics, did I pay for that damn medal? No.
Davis echoed a frustration many fighters have quietly shared for years. He questioned why athletes are required to pay for championship belts after earning them through competition. Drawing a comparison to amateur boxing, he pointed out that medals at the Olympic level aren't bought, they're awarded based on performance. In his view, the same principle should apply to professional titles, aligning himself firmly with Crawford's stance. His comments struck a deep chord throughout the boxing world. Davis highlighted what he saw as a fundamental contradiction in the sport: fighters sacrificing years of their lives to reach the top, only to be told they must pay fees for recognition they already earned inside the ring.
If I walk into this arena without this belt, is these people still gonna show up? Yes. So keep the belt. You're not gonna take my money. With all due respect, you know what I'm saying? I just feel like, so I agree with Terence, you know what I'm saying? But I just don't agree with paying for belts. That's why, for all the sanctioning bodies, you know what I'm saying? And I told this to the one that I was under, the WBO. I told him to. I said, I don't really believe in that. And he explained why. And I was like, okay, but I still don't agree with it. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm always going to be, like, for not paying for belts. Because what the fuck are we paying them?
He voiced what many fighters had long been too cautious to say out loud: that the presence of a belt isn't what fills arenas or draws fans. The audience comes for the fighter, not the strap. From that perspective, paying for something that doesn't determine popularity or legacy made little sense. To younger boxers, Crawford wasn't abandoning the sport, he was taking a stand. He was doing what few before him had the courage to attempt, openly confronting boxing's most protected institutions. But challenges like that never go unanswered. The establishment pushed back, and while WBC President Mauricio Suleiman chose a measured, diplomatic tone, the underlying strain between both sides was impossible to ignore.
With $225,000 going to the Jose Sulaiman Boxers Fund, which is to help former fighters in need. And it is just regrettable. Not even a thank you or I'm sorry, taking a different route. No response. I wish him the best. But this is not. The WBC is huge, it's great, it's about greatness, and I'm relieved, to tell you the truth.
Suleiman declined to escalate the dispute, telling reporters he had no interest in trading insults with Crawford. He emphasized that the organization's priority, in his view, has always been the welfare of fighters and wished Crawford well both inside and outside the sport. According to Suleiman, sanctioning fees were never intended as a cash grab, but rather as a way to support the Jose Sulaiman Boxers Fund, an initiative designed to assist retired and financially struggling fighters. Still, many fans remained unconvinced by that explanation. As the debate grew more heated, longtime ring announcer Jimmy Lennon Jr. weighed in, describing the public fallout as messy and regrettable, and warning that the ongoing feud reflected poorly on everyone involved.
I think, like Mauricio, I'm going to take a high road, but I will say it's unfortunate for the sport of boxing. I think talking about money too much, and it is not the high road. And so we've seen some kind of ugly and not so pretty things, exchanges happen here. And so it's unfortunate, but it is a reality. I think there's some things behind the scenes that I have heard about that aren't necessarily public yet.
Lennon cautioned that obsessing over finances rarely leads to a positive outcome, noting that these kinds of disputes have always existed quietly in the background of boxing. What troubled him most was seeing those tensions spill into the open, damaging the sport's image. Beneath the carefully worded statements and controlled media appearances, there was a deeper concern: anxiety that Crawford's defiance might encourage other fighters to challenge the system as well. Then an unexpected voice entered the conversation. Rapper Cam'ron offered his own perspective, and his comments quickly caught fire across sports and social media.
Listen, to be honest with you, he brought a lot of light that I didn't know about when it came to the sanctioning fees. And it seems like one big extortion game. I've seen Floyd say it before, belts collect dust, the money is what really matters. As long as he gets his money and everything else, I think we already know he's a perennial world champion, probably the pound-for-pound champion right now.
Cam'ron didn't soften his stance. He framed sanctioning fees as something far more troubling, describing them as a system designed to squeeze fighters for money. He echoed long-standing sentiments previously voiced by boxing icons, that championship belts often end up as decorations, while real value lies in financial freedom. In Cam'ron's view, Crawford wasn't acting irrationally, he was showing bravery. He reminded fans that Crawford's perfect record and historic achievements are permanent, regardless of what any organization decides. No sanctioning body, he argued, can erase a legacy built in the ring. To him, Crawford was still the standard at the top of the sport, someone who simply pulled back the curtain on how things really work. Those remarks spread rapidly across social platforms, sports shows, and boxing podcasts. For the first time in years, the conversation shifted. Fans weren't just scrutinizing fighters anymore, they were questioning the governing powers behind the sport. And as the debate grew louder, an unexpected voice from outside boxing entered the discussion, UFC President Dana White, offering a blunt reality check.
If you look at how this thing's playing out, and first of all, let me say this. I love that all these guys, all these boxing guys, love the Ali Act the way it is now. I want to see how many of them actually stay there and do that version of the Ali Act instead of the add-on that we're going to do.
Dana White was never one to stay on the sidelines, and he didn't hesitate to share his unfiltered take. He suggested that the situation was obvious to anyone paying attention, implying that the loudest critics were often the ones contributing to the problem. From his perspective, Crawford was simply acting independently, making his own choices without asking for approval. In the end, White made it clear that the outcome would speak for itself.
You know what I mean? You don't have to be a fucking rocket scientist to see what's going on with all these guys. They're all these guys that are crying the loudest are the fucking problems. They're the problem, every one of these guys.
White's remarks struck a nerve, not because they were shocking, but because many believed they rang true. He warned that boxing's constant infighting, financial disputes, and behind-the-scenes power struggles would eventually push its biggest names away. Now, that warning seemed to be playing out in real time. After years of ruling the sport, Crawford appeared finished battling the system around him. This wasn't a case of being outmatched in the ring, it was exhaustion with the politics, the lawsuits, and the never-ending business wars. The fighter who once stood as boxing's standard-bearer was now stepping away from the sport altogether. Still, one question refuses to fade. Is this truly the end of Terence Crawford's journey, or merely a break before one final, unforgettable return?
Whether it took me however many years to get to the point where I'm at, I did it my way. You know, a lot of people can't say that. A lot of people can criticize me and say, oh.
Terence Crawford's choice to step away signals the close of one of the most extraordinary runs in modern boxing history. A champion across 3 weight classes, undisputed at welterweight, and unbeaten through 42 professional bouts, he built a reputation as a master craftsman in the ring, quiet, precise, and relentlessly effective. Now, he exits on his own terms. Not because he was outmatched or fading, but because he reached his limit with the system surrounding the sport. For supporters, it's a painful goodbye that came too soon. For Crawford, it represents release, freedom from an industry he believes no longer values what he brings. Titles can be taken. Paperwork can be revoked. But the legacy he forged with his fists, his discipline, and his principles is permanent and untouchable.
Terence Crawford's right. And it's rich as from the WBC, because if they upheld all their rules in their little manifesto, if they upheld them all the time, on time, then do you know something? They might get a bit of sympathy from me here. When you have guys holding #1 positions in weight divisions.
Whether this break from the sport lasts forever or proves temporary, one reality is impossible to ignore. Terence Crawford has forced boxing to confront an issue it avoided for years, that fighters are the heartbeat of the game. And when those fighters begin to step away, the foundation of the entire system starts to shake. Now the question is yours to answer. Has Crawford truly closed the book on his career? Or is this his way of reclaiming control from an establishment that tried to dictate his path? Share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more in-depth boxing stories and updates. Because if this really is the final chapter of Terence "Bud" Crawford's journey, it's one the sport will be talking about for a very long time. Until next time.